If you're suffering with some hiatal hernia situations, we're going to see if we can help you find a little bit of relief. But if you haven't already seen our video on understanding a hiatal hernia, pause this video now and go watch this first, or a lot of the things I explain here are not going to make a whole bunch of sense. Because we're going to see if we can help you find some immediate relief, but we also want to correct the actual underlying causes so the problem doesn't keep coming back. Let's get at it.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So the first thing we want to look at for some immediate relief is kind of a self-adjustment type situation. And a lot of people I've heard from have found a chiropractor that has helped them do this a little bit. You're basically wanting to push on your stomach in a way that can bring this bulge back down under the diaphragm. So this part of the stomach that's up here into the diaphragm would come below the diaphragm and fix that hernia situation. So there's a lot of chiropractors that are really skilled at helping you figure out, do I have a hiatal hernia? And then helping you manipulate that a little bit to bring it back down. But I hear from a lot of people that find a lot of success figuring out how to do this on their own. And this is something that I did. I'm not telling you to poke at yourself. I'm just saying that a lot of people have found success doing this. And basically they'll find a way to kind of push their stomach in just below their xiphoid process there, below your rib cage, maybe over to the left side of the body a little bit, just down, and then push that down. So I'm going to put a link to a video that I found on YouTube that really shows this and does a good demonstration of showing how to push this down. And I've had a lot of clients see a lot of success with this. So I'm not going to show you the whole thing here because that's not my specialty, but I'll put a link to that video in the description below to kind of show you how to walk through doing that. And you hear from other people that say maybe you push in and then push up to kind of help release this a little bit. But I've heard a lot more people saying to kind of push your stomach down a little bit, just to kind of do a self-massage sort of thing that can bring that stomach back down where it wants to be. And another way to do this is another trick. I call it the water jump trick. And basically what I would do, and I would do this when I was a younger whippersnapper, I might not want to have you jumping off your bed, but basically I would try to fill the stomach with water. I would drink a really big glass of water, and I'd stand up on my bed, and then I'd jump down and kind of land on the floor with a little bit of force. And basically the weight of the water would pull my stomach down, and I could feel it. Oh wow, that feels better. That kind of worked. And maybe if you're old and crickety like I am now, you might not want to jump off your bed. I was doing this when I was a whippersnapper. So one way you could tell if you're too old to do this is if you say things like whippersnapper. People don't really say that anymore. But even if you just stand on your toes and just forcefully drop to the ground, sometimes if you have enough water in there, that can be enough weight to pull it down a little bit. So what I found worked best is if I did that trick, maybe in the morning, and then also did a little bit of the self-massage adjusting along with that, I really found that I got good movement and I was able to keep it down for the day. Now, I might find that I might do that, especially the self-adjustment, 2 or 3 times during the day just to keep it back down, because if the underlying cause that's pushing it back up is still there, you could really see it coming back up. So we're going to talk about correcting some of these other things, but those 2 steps, with either you doing a self-adjustment if you want to do that, or finding a chiropractor that can help you do that, along with the filling your stomach and then just letting that weight bring it down a few times a day, a lot of people find success with that. So the next thing that could bring some quick relief for some people is acidifying the stomach properly. And a lot of people might try, some apple cider vinegar to do this. That can give a really small boost, but most people are going to use betaine HCl capsules to help really acidify the stomach. And keep in mind that even when there's a hernia here, if it's a small one and it's just kind of jacked up a little bit, sometimes helping acidify the stomach can help that LES close because it's getting the signal from the acid. Remember, this LES valve is signaled to close from our stomach acid. So if someone makes just a little bit of stomach acid, but it's not enough to trigger that valve to close, well, now that small amount of acid that's in there is going to come back up and really burn them, and it's going to create a lot of discomfort. So we want to help acidify it in a way that it's enough to trigger that valve to close. So the problem is if somebody really has a hiatal hernia and they start to use HCl, they could be acidifying the stomach enough to trigger the valve to close, but if it's all jacked up, then it might not be able to close, and now all that acid is going to come back up. So basically they've now magnified their reflux symptoms and made it even more painful. So they might want to do some work to fix the hiatal hernia first, but I find it's kind of a toss-up with a 50-50. Some people can maybe acidify the stomach a little bit and the valve will close even when they have a small hernia, and some people really need to work on the hernia before they can get that valve to close even when they are acidifying it with some HCl. I found that I kind of had to work on this hernia a little bit first, and that's what worked for me. So I kind of did this self-adjustment stuff. I did the water jump trick, and then I was eventually able to add in the acidification process. Now, to fix this long term, a lot of times the stomach is not acidic enough because some type of bacterial overgrowth has come in and they set up camp and they're raising their kids and they're going to keg parties and they're having a great time. And as they replicate, then the stomach becomes even more alkaline because the waste product from that bacteria can be alkaline sometimes. So that alkaline waste can sometimes neutralize the small amount of acid that a person is making. So all this bacteria here, remember, like we talked about in the other video, can create the pressure from the gases that they can create. And that pressure is what can be pushing up constantly and pushing part of the stomach up into the diaphragm and kind of stretching this hole, maybe even tearing it a little bit and creating that hiatal hernia. So we really want to take steps to get rid of this overgrowth and make it gone. So I'm going to put a link in the description below this video on how to wipe out bacteria in the stomach. The bacteria should not be there in the stomach. So a lot of people may need to take this step first before they can start using HCl. Otherwise, when you put HCl and it kind of mixes with that alkaline waste from all that bacterial overgrowth, it can create like a fizzy mess and a lot more discomfort and bloating and even more reflux and stuff like that. So this can be a good step to take first before you try to acidify things if you feel like you might have an overgrowth of bacteria in the stomach. Now, the next thing we want to think about is if a person is dealing with a catabolic imbalance like we talked about in the previous video, then they may not have the ability to really rebuild and re-strengthen tissues the way that the body should. So if this has a little bit of a tear in it and it's kind of separated enough for the stomach to come up here, you can take steps to pull it down like we've talked about with all these self-adjustment things. But if you pull it down, it might not really stay if that diaphragm is not able to heal the way that it should. And for it to heal the way that it should, a person needs to move into that anabolic rest and repair and rebuild state at night, like we're supposed to do that. So if a person has a catabolic imbalance, they're going to need to correct that so that the body can rebuild and repair the way that it should. And we'll put a link to that understanding the catabolic imbalance below in the description so you can kind of check that out, and that'll kind of help you figure out, am I leaning too far on that catabolic side? And if you are, then you can take steps to correct that. And the final thing here is that if the body's going to repair and rebuild this tissue so that it stays secure and stays down, it needs building blocks to do that. So most of the building blocks that the body wants is amino acids. And in order to access amino acids, we need to be able to break down protein. Well, guess how we break down protein? We do it with stomach acid. So a lot of people that are dealing with a hiatal hernia, the majority of them, not all of them, but the majority of them were caused by some type of bacterial overgrowth that's creating all this pressure that's pushing things up. And that bacterial overgrowth usually got there because there wasn't enough stomach acid to fry them when they came in on the food that we ate. The bacteria is coming in on the food that we eat, and that stomach acid is our barrier. It's our night and disgusting armor that fries all these bacteria as they come in. So you can see that this kind of vicious circle kind of creates the problem for the person, but it can also make it stick around and make it have a hard time fixing that. So we really want to make sure a person can digest correctly so that they can pull the building blocks out of the food they're eating. They want to break that protein down into amino acids so those amino acids can be used to rebuild tissues like the diaphragm here. So we really want to stop that vicious circle by correcting these issues. So it can be some work to figure out which of these issues are a problem for you and which ones do you need to put attention in. And you know, there are some surgery options that are out there, but you just don't hear a lot of good about them. It seems like, oh, you got a 50-50 shot at it working when you do the surgery, and they don't have coupons for their surgeries. They can be costly. And the problem that you hear is that a lot of people that it does work that maybe a year or so later it kind of doesn't work anymore. Maybe the damage happens again because they didn't fix the actual underlying cause of the problem. They just repaired that damage without stopping it from happening again. So I like to see people look at these things when they have that as an option. If you don't have it as an option, maybe this is your best option. But what's amazing is how many people suffer with this for years and decades without understanding what's going on. So you know what I did? In the description below, I put a link for tweet this video. So if this has helped you, go down and hit that and tweet the video out on your account so that more people can understand what's going on with them and find their answers. So for you right now, if you feel like you may be dealing with the bacterial overgrowth in the stomach, jump over and watch that video right now on how to wipe out bad bacteria in the stomach so you can start working on taking care of that business. I can't wait to hear about your results.